So before I install them, just a review of the parts that I had to buy additional to what was in the kit. So on the end of the seawater strainer, I had to buy a 1" and a 3/4, only because my through hull is 1". So I'm going with a 1" hose. The kit came with 5/8, which was certainly there. And I'm going with 3/4 from here through to the T-fitting, only because the 3/4 hose was readily available. So it's sizing up from the 5/8. But again, I had to purchase these only because I've changed the hose size, and of course the corresponding piece on the other end at the T. The other thing I had to purchase was this brass elbow. Again, this part came with the kit for vertical into your tank. I don't have the clearance, so I had to go with an elbow. Would have been nice if they had the 2 parts, but not the end of the world. At some point I am going to get this all in 8mm plastic, because I got brass going into aluminum, which whatever, I'll have thread tape. But anyways, pretty cheap. It's just a elbow, 1/4" elbow and a 1/4" close nipple, and I'll drill and tap out the top of my tank for that. And the other thing I had to purchase, which was kind of silly, this is the T that came with the kit for your 5/8 line, but there wasn't a corresponding, as I mentioned earlier. So I had to pick this up at the local DIY hardware store. Very cheap, not a big deal. All of my plumbing's with this stuff anyway, so not a big deal. And what I did optionally was I pre-purchased a 1/4" 3-way valve. This little baby here, a little expensive, shipping and everything. But then, of course, as I mentioned, when I found out, the tube that we use is 1/4" inside diameter, 8mm outside, or 5/16. So my expensive valve was useless. So instead what I purchased, and this is optional, I want to have a spot where I can test product water and fill water jugs or whatever. So basically I purchased an 8mm T. That's going to be in our kitchen cabinet. I could reach in. That's going to have a short little piece of tube to an on-off valve, a shut-off valve. That then is going to loop around with this hose, go back down through the cabinet through to the water tank. So here's where it comes from, the Watermaker. Then in addition, off this end of the T, I'm going to have obviously a short little connector, another on-off valve, and I'm going to have a short little length of hose that I can pull out and stick into the galley sink, just to test, run the Watermaker, test the parts per million prior to turning that valve off. Well, obviously this one goes on first, then that one off, and then it diverts it to the tank. So not as pretty as this thing, but it'll work. When I source an 8mm 3-way valve, I'll then use these further downstream, and it'll be for product water coming in, port tank, starboard tank. And I'll just put that down underneath the floorboard, so if we decide to fill a different tank, which probably won't be the case very often. And again, the reason I went this route is if we're in heavy seas and we take waves onto the deck, if our deck water filler cap were ever to fail, the O-ring or whatever, and our tanks become contaminated, a little bit of a problem. This way here, we can always just pull this out, select the valve, and fill water jugs, so then we'll have potable drinking water, and our brackish tanks can then be used for dishes, showers, whatever, until we sort the issue out. Yeah, so I liked the idea of putting in a short little hose into our galley sink to test product water and to fill jugs or whatever. That's the way we're doing it. Not a lot of money, just awkward sourcing 8mm stuff where I am. Shipping's a little prohibitive, and our Canadian dollar is whatever, Canadian peso. So anyways, time to do the final assembly, and we'll show you what it all looks like.